Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Train the Trainer. My name is Kirsty, and I'm the crowdfunding coach for the Tyne area. So I am here today with my colleague, Mary.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Kirsty. I'm really excited to be here as well for the Train the Trainer. Just going to start with a couple of little housekeeping points. The first thing that we always like to say is that although you're watching us, we are unable to see you, we are unable to hear you. So we hope that that means you can sit back and really enjoy, relax and take everything in that's happening. If you start to struggle to see us or hear us at any point during this, we generally find that if you hit the refresh button at the top, that should sort any issues out. We have scheduled 1 hour for this webinar. So it is very, very packed. We have lots and lots of information to give you over that hour. So instead of stopping and starting for questions, what we'll ask you to do is pop any questions that come up in your head in the box to the side, and we will come to them at the end, and we will answer any questions that you may have. So we hope you sit back and you learn a lot from this. And remember to pop any questions in.
Okay. So today's session is really, it's a Train the Trainer. So it's aimed at those who are going to be identifying potential projects and supporting crowdfunding projects through the process. So we're just going to cover off what you need to know to be able to pass on to project owners and how you can help them. We've been helping projects for a couple of years now in the Crowdfund Scotland team. So as part of the company Crowdfunder UK, so Crowdfunder is a UK-based company, and our prime focus is rewards-based crowdfunding. If you haven't heard of that before, that is where people can pledge money on a project and receive something in return, and that's as a direct comparison to a donation-only crowdfunder, where people donate their money and it's an amount of their own choosing, and it's usually just out of goodwill or passion for the cause. Most people have been asked at some point to, donate to a crowdfunder through somebody's doing like a sponsored marathon or something like that. That is simply crowdfunding. It's an alternative way of financing a project. So Crowdfund Scotland is a partnership between Crowdfunder UK and Leader, which is an EU fund, and the Leader's focus is really helping to create development and support economic development in rural areas. The Leader fund tends to, it passes out funding directly to projects of usually quite a large amount. But what they wanted to do was leave a legacy because the fund is coming to an end, a legacy of helping communities in rural areas be able to be a bit more self-sufficient in terms of funding. So set up the Crowdfund Scotland coaching team for us to pass on the knowledge and the skills for their own future use. And we've been doing that across 9 different areas, one of which is Tyne. So
there are different ways for projects to raise money on Crowdfunder. The first one I'm going to talk about is all or nothing. So the all or nothing, for a project raising funds to use all or nothing, what that would mean was if this project had a target of, for example, £5,000, they would need to raise that full £5,000 to get any of the funds that had been donated. If they'd only reached £4,500 by the end of their project and not the full 5,000, any money that had been raised would be returned to anybody that had pledged on the project. So people would use an all or nothing, for example, if they had a project in mind and their project could absolutely not go ahead. There was no other form of funding. It couldn't go ahead unless they raised all the money. That would be a really good example of when an all or nothing can be used. Another reason that people would use an all or nothing campaign would potentially be if perhaps they felt that they needed the extra motivation. So if their target was £5,000 and they had a week left to go of their project, they would then push that little bit harder, because they would find that £500. They would speak to more people. They would put more energy in, because the fear of losing that money would probably spur them on and really encourage them. The other form of funding we offer is flexible funding. So with flexible funding, this means if the target will stick to the same target, if they had a target of £5,000, and at the end of the project, when the project closed, they had only raised £4,500 of that, they would then get to keep everything that they had raised, whether that was £1 or 4,999 or the 5,000, they would get to keep every single penny that they'd raised. So it's completely down to the project owners what they decide would suit their project best. We can advise and we can give them the tools to make that decision themselves, but we can't pick for them what kind of funding method they choose, but to let them know what is available. Crowdfunder are a business. We do charge fees for crowdfunding in general. Our fees we have a platform fee, which is 3% plus VAT. We also have a card payment provider. Now, these are the people who look after any money that has been pledged and make sure all the transactions are secure and the money is held securely and within full regulation. And they charge a fee of 1.67% of the total raised, plus 25 pence per pledge, plus VAT on top of that. It's always worth remembering, if it is a person that's running a crowdfunder is VAT registered for whatever they're running the crowdfunder for, they can claim that money back in VAT. And we try and get anything paid out within 7 days of the project closing. Now, one of the things with Crowdfunder is we are a company who like to see good being done in the world, and we like to help people out. So when COVID-19 really started kicking off and people started feeling the effects of that in the UK, Crowdfunder saw that as an opportunity to help as many people as possible to raise money for whatever projects they were doing. So we started the COVID-19 response. So what that means is Crowdfunder scrapped the platform fee, and not only that is any card transaction fees through Stripe, Crowdfunder are paying for all projects who are raising money in relation to COVID-19. So that's a really good prospect for anybody struggling at the moment, and every single penny that they raise, they do get to keep at the end of the project.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of the benefits that you get from crowdfunding, apart from the obvious one being money. It's a really good way of validating an idea. So if, for example, somebody is starting a new business through crowdfunding and looking for startup funds, by going out to the crowd and gathering that support and people actually pledging money towards that project, it validates that it's a good idea and that people actually it's going to work, it's going to happen, and they want to see it happen. So that's a really positive feedback that you can get from the crowd. It's going to create awareness of the project. So again, if it's something new, or if it's a charity, for example, who are using crowdfunding for the first time for fundraising, what it can do is help raise awareness of the work that they're actually doing, because they're going to reach hopefully a wider audience using maybe slightly different methods than they would have done in traditional fundraising, going out to a more an internet-based audience and just reaching a wider crowd in general. So it's going to create awareness of the project just by default, and it's going to also bring along some and get new advocates on board. So again, if people are willing to actually put their own money towards a project, that means they are very interested in it, and that they're probably going to want to follow not just the crowdfunder, they're going to want to follow the progression of the project after it's closed and everything's being fulfilled. So they're going to become new customers or new members or new volunteers, and they're also going to be talking about the project to people that they know. Learning new skills, that's something that comes along with crowdfunding as well for most project owners. It's something, if it's the first time they've done crowdfunding, they're going to be learning some new organisational skills, how to promote and market their project, and there's quite a lot to do. So we're going to come on to what skills that are required a bit later on, to give you a flavour of those skills. And then finally, extra funding and support. So the extra funding is something that comes sometimes through Crowdfunder UK. What we do as a company is go out and speak to funding partners, so local authorities or corporate companies as well, corporates, and we try to secure extra match funding for projects. And that is one of the biggest things that we do to try and boost people's projects, boost the amount of money that they raise. And also it helps the funding partners to distribute their money a bit more fairly, potentially, and make it go a little bit further as well. And the support can come in also with other funding, because if somebody is running a crowdfunder and it's successful, that provides really good visual and physical evidence that it's a viable project, which they can then take that to other funders and say, look what we're doing. You'd like to maybe put your money behind it as well. So it's twofold. Okay, so I mentioned right at the start there about us being a rewards-based crowdfunding company. We do offer the donations only as well. Every page does actually have the option for people just to donate or to pledge on a reward if there are rewards available. And we find rewards do increase the amount that people will pledge towards a project. So the average donation will be around £10 to £12, but with a reward, it might be around £40 to £50. So that is because people have that incentive to look at the rewards and see, does that appeal to me? Oh yes, that's something I would really like, or it's exclusively available through the crowdfunder and therefore it's not available anywhere else. I'll have to get it here if I want it. So rewards tend to be broken down into 4 different categories. The first of which is products and services. So for a business, for example, they're maybe launching a new product, or it's a brand new business and they're offering a new service. So it's a good way of almost pre-selling, and people can pre-order their product via the crowdfunder. The project owner is completely in control of the fulfillment date of the reward. So again, if it's something that they're raising funds for the production of the product, then that's a really good way of doing it, because they can say, oh, well, you're going to pre-order it and that will give us the cash up front to produce it, and then we'll fulfill it, on X date. Experiences and events are also something that are really popular. I always use an example of an outdoor an outdoor adventure company, for example, and people bought vouchers to go on maybe an outdoor adventure, a guided walk, or maybe some abseiling, for example, and people enjoy that type of thing as well. And if they know the crowd well, you can make it appealing for them. Corporate and sponsorships are really valuable. If the project owner has links to the corporate, to anybody in the corporate world, or even a local medium-sized business, which they tend to maybe have a higher budget that they can put towards local community projects, or maybe sponsor the space, sponsor a room, an event space within a building. There's all sorts of ways you can get creative. You can offer a team building day, for example, if it's that type of a service that you're offering. So it's always worth considering by a project owner. And a simple thank you, because lots of people out there do want to support projects, but they might not have very much money. But, we always suggest setting a thank you at around the £5 or £10 mark. And it can be maybe just a public acknowledgement, a thank you on their social media, have their name written up on a wall, or maybe a small postcard sent to them. Something quite simple and straightforward.
So with this being a Train the Trainer session, we want to discuss how you are able to help projects and how you can support projects and the tools that you have available to you to help support these projects onto crowdfund. So the first couple of things that we want to think about is signposting the project, what resources you can signpost them to, and what support you can signpost them to, empowering them, ensuring that they have the knowledge and the skills and the belief in themselves to actually go ahead and supporting them. Crowdfunding tends not to be completely straightforward. Quite often we'll see when a project's live, there'll be a bit of a dip in it, and it's supporting the project through that to ensure that they know that this will pass, and maybe even throwing some ideas about with them to encourage them to really help to meet their target. So when you are coaching a project, these are things that you can do. So the first one is signpost them to relevant guides and links. And we will go through with you what kind of guides and support we do have available. And also after this, Kirsty will be sending out an email at some point, which has a whole sheet on links to useful resources. Ask about their project and apply your knowledge of crowdfunding to how they might piece a campaign together. So hopefully after this, you'll go away with a bit more knowledge about crowdfunding to be able to say to the project owner, look, this is the kind of things that you should be doing. This is how it would look good. But one of the important things is actually asking the project owner about their project. So quite often the first thing we will see is a project owner having written something about their project, but sometimes a phone call and actually get them to speak about it, because only then do you quite often really get their kind of passion about their project. And you can make sure you go, oh, make sure you put that in. And quite often the project owners haven't realised that. So make sure you ask about it and ask questions. Get the project to give you their go live date and encourage them to stick to it. This by actually verbally saying out loud a go live date, it really makes it become more concrete for a project owner, and they feel that they are working towards as opposed to just pushing it back constantly. At some point, all live projects go through a slow patch, and we do see that all the time. What we find in crowdfunding is that generally at the start of a project there's a peak, and at the end of the project there's a peak, and there's a dip right in the middle where quite often we find project owners get a bit disheartened, get a bit they feel that this isn't going to work. And it's about those kind of times we really need anybody supporting the project to be saying, push through, really, this is going to get better, maybe even throwing some ideas about with them. Things that we wouldn't expect you to do if you are supporting a project owner. First one is creating a project page for them. You can guide them, you can give them examples of good project pages that you can find on crowdfunder.co.uk. You can give them ideas on what they can put on them, but you wouldn't create the page for them. The reason that we would talk about that is because that project owner knows their project better than you ever will. They should know it inside out and what their plans are. So the person that's going to make the best page, with the best resources, is the person that knows what's available to them. You won't do all the project marketing. Again, it's about allowing the project owner to do it themselves, but there's nothing stopping you giving them ideas on how they can effectively market their project, and they will have the network map hopefully in place, and we'll talk about that later, to go out to as wide a range of people as possible that would be interested in their project. You won't promise they'll get funded. The same way as if they were applying for a bank loan, you couldn't promise that they would receive that loan. In the same way, you can't promise that through a crowdfunder they will raise the money. You won't accept responsibility for a project not funding. You're supporting the project. It is not down to you to ensure that project has funded. So not every project will reach their target. However, it is not your responsibility to accept that. And you won't assist with the campaign delivery post-funding. The project owner decides what rewards perhaps that they want to offer. When they are planning that, and you can help guide them, it is worth reminding them that they will need to fulfill these rewards at some point. And the project owner at that point should be looking and thinking, okay, I know what I need to fulfill and I know how I'm going to do it to ensure that they are delivered. That leaves absolutely no pressure on you and nothing on you to help deliver those rewards at the end of the project. When we are looking at crowdfunding pages and potential projects, occasionally there are some warning signs that a project either isn't going to get funded or they're looking at it perhaps the wrong way, and at those points we need to adjust the project owner's perception of what they're doing. So one of the first ones, and we do get it, is somebody saying, I'm too busy to crowdfund. And what that generally means is, well, I'll throw a page up and hope for the best. But in those cases, there's nobody marketing the project. The project is not going to fund. Crowdfunding is quite intense. It does take quite a lot of effort, quite a lot of energy, quite a lot of talking to people. There's a lot to it. So if they're too busy to crowdfund, generally they're not going to prepare and put out a really effective project. A lack of planning and time set aside. So we always talk about some of our most successful projects we've had in the pipeline for quite a while before they go live, because they have spent time planning their project. So that can be things like speaking to people before they go live, making sure the rewards are really effective, making sure their page looks good, putting all the elements together. So some of those, I mean, I think Kirsty quite often talks about a project that she got handed to her on her first day of work, almost about a year and a half ago, Kirsty, and that project has only just gone live. Now, that is an extreme example. It really is an extreme example. Usually a couple of months is a thing, but Kirsty's project did very, very well, I'd like to point out. An incoherent or an unconvincing story. If I went onto a crowdfunder page and I looked at the story and I thought, I don't understand what they're trying to do, I don't understand what they're trying to achieve, or I'm not sure that that's going to work in any way, I'm not going to pledge in a project like that. So it is worth making sure that what they're planning to do is well thought through. Intangible public or supporter benefit. Generally, when people are pledging a crowdfunder, they're kind of thinking, what am I going to get out of this? What's the community going to get out of this? How is this going to benefit other people? And if people can't see any benefit in it, they're less likely to pledge. One of the ones we do get on a regular basis is, I'll just get a celebrity to post about it. That is the full marketing campaign. If you do come across one of these, then it is a really good idea to go, okay, that can be part of your marketing plan, and it's only going to be a tiny little element of it. Where are we going to put it when you're marketing? Quite often, a celebrity will maybe say, we will post about it, and they don't post about it in the end. So if a full campaign is based around that, it's not going to work. The other thing is easy to get lost. If a celebrity is posted about it once, it'll get lost in social media very, very quickly. So it won't help the campaign. So when you see that, it is worth exploring what other marketing plans they have and ensuring that that is literally a tiny element of their marketing. And the final one is relying heavily on one group or source of funding. We all know that sometimes if we maybe applied for something, it doesn't pan out. So relying on one group or source to fund it all may not work out. So for a project owner, they should be looking at as wide a range of people who may be interested in their project as possible.
Okay, so I'm going to just give you a quick summary here of the type of things that we offer in terms of coaching and expertise, which is available to, excuse me, project owners, but also you can access it yourselves to further your own knowledge. So we've been running Train the Trainers. So this is to help people like yourselves who will be supporting projects and giving you a bit more background information and detail of how to do that. We've also been running lots of workshops, and we now have online learning available. So workshops, they were face-to-face when we started out with Crowdfund Scotland, and then obviously we've moved online, like most people have now, and we've developed that. It's actually given us a great opportunity, to be honest, going online. We can reach more people more easily, and we've developed on an online learning course to run alongside the webinars that we've been doing. So we'll send you out the link to that at the end. One-to-one coaching is for the leader eligible areas. So again, as I've mentioned, Tyne is one of those areas, and those projects just get a little bit of extra support from us on a one-to-one basis to help them, give them extra confidence. Online guides, we've got 3 key guides, which I'm going to cover off in the next slide. Accelerator program. This is a great opportunity for anybody actually UK-wide to join a closed Facebook group, and it runs for 2 weeks, and it's almost like an intense intensive course of, learning all about crowdfunding. It's more detail, more guidance, more hints and tips from our coaches. It's an opportunity to communicate directly with the coaches, and not just ourselves. We have coaches down in Newquay as well, and peer-to-peer support as well, so people can talk to each other. Project owners can talk to each other via the groups. So there's one of those starting on the 16th of November, so anybody can sign up to that. Live customer support is offered through our support team down in Newquay, and they will again communicate quite readily directly with project owners and offer personalised email advice. And finally, live project analytics is referring to a project dashboard which all project owners have access to, and it's just a really good way of keeping an eye on and analysing their project, what's happening with the pledges, where they're coming from, how many people are looking at the page. We're going to show you a screenshot of that right at the end of this session. So I mentioned the online guide. So there are 3 key guides, because we tend to break down the whole process into 3 steps to success. They're downloadable and free. So the first one is based on planning, and that looks at that team of skills that you need. It talks about how to identify your audience and how you're going to communicate with them, and putting a plan together for that. And then there's the creating your project is the next stage, and that's about setting the page up on the website, putting it together with the story and the pictures and the video. And we're going to cover all of these in some detail in a moment. And then finally is the running of the project. So there's lots of guidance on how to do that effectively using social media, how to actually set your project to go live, and then maintaining that engagement and keeping the momentum going through the project as well. So we're just going to have a look at the first step now, planning.
We're going to have a look at planning your project and looking at what kind of steps and elements are required when a project owner is in the planning stage. Now, the first thing we generally do say is for them to get a team together. Now, the reason behind pulling a team together when they're planning a project is because there are so many elements to put a crowdfunder together. And I'm not one of these people that has all these skills. And to be honest, I don't know anybody who has every last one of these skills to do this on their own. And quite often they even just need a second check. So the project owner doesn't need an individual person for each task. It could be that 2 people can manage all these tasks, but certainly they need a team of some kind to make sure that these kind of skills are covered. So they would need a project leader, somebody who knows the project and is kind of going to take care of the project. Now, quite often we do see that the project leader is the person who has thought the project up in the first place. However, in businesses or things like that, sometimes it is delegated to somebody else to manage the project a bit better. And the team needs somebody who's good at planning the project. So that is somebody who maybe likes spreadsheets, really good at organising all those kind of dates and things that are required for the planning. Second one is making a video. Now, we are going to go into more depth a wee bit later about making a video, so I'm only going to touch on it just now. But generally, somebody who has a mobile phone is enough. We're not talking about a full production team, just somebody that can work a mobile phone and can hopefully get a good steady video and has some good ideas. Writing the story, and whenever I talk about writing the story, I always embarrass Kirsty a bit, because getting somebody with skills to write a story is a fantastic thing. And if in our team, if we ever need a story or something written, we do generally turn to Kirsty, because we know that is one of her many strengths. But some people are very, very good at that kind of thing, whereas me, myself, if I write a story, it is an absolute disaster. The importance of writing a really good story is such a pinnacle thing in a crowdfunding project, because it is the difference between quite often somebody getting really engaged by the project and somebody kind of not engaging with what they're saying. So for example, if I came in and I said, I'm going to start a bakery because I like cakes, that would probably be less engaging than a different story that would be, I want to start a community bakery where the community can come, they can meet, they can maybe get classes, we want to encourage the local youth into employment. That's a very, very different story than I like cakes. Creating a page, it is somebody that can work out their way around the computer. Again, somebody that's maybe quite good visually at seeing what looks good and what doesn't, and what would work and what wouldn't. We do try and make the interface that people come up against when they're creating a project as easy as possible to navigate. So we are not talking about super geniuses being able to build these pages. It is just somebody who can work their way through it and hopefully has a good eye for what looks good and a good eye for detail. Somebody that can promote the project. You always do have somebody in your team who could talk for Britain and could pass all the information on and speak to as many people and has really good networks. So those would be people you would be looking at and getting to promote the project. And finally, somebody running social media. Quite often there's maybe somebody in a team who's always got their nose on a phone, always on social media, knows what's good and effective and what isn't. And these are the people you want to harness for running social media. Social media in itself can be a whole art form to make sure that people are engaging in things. So look for the person with their nose on the phone who knows their way about social media to really make it as effective as possible.
Okay, so one of the first tasks for the team to take on is to sit down and create what we call a network map. Now, this is just basically a list of everybody that they know. So whether they do a list or whether they do a mind map, such as this one on the screen, is completely up to them. But it's just really important to do it right early doors, and then it's going to become a working document through the whole project. So by starting close to the project, they're going to look first of all at friends and family of everybody who's involved with the project, and those are the people that you would hope you'll be able to rely on for pledges and also to help promote the project. You're going to have to, they need to include any staff or members of the organisation as well, and make sure everybody's in the loop, that they know that they're crowdfunding and that what they're trying to achieve through it as well. Existing customers and existing member base as well, that, literally write down what if they have customer segments, for example, and having a look at who they all are and typical things that they might buy through the company and that type of thing. It's like a market research exercise, really. So having them all listed. Thinking about which press might be interested. If they've got local newspapers they can go to, do you think it's worthwhile going out to national newspapers to create awareness, and making a list maybe of any bloggers, if there are any in the industry. So for example, if it's a food related project, then there's lots of bloggers in the food and drink industry. So getting in touch with them, and the benefits of that is that they then share with their large numbers of followers, and it's creating much more awareness to a wider audience than they would ordinarily reach. Local people and community are very important as well. That's where probably most of the pledges will come from, because people are familiar with the organisation in that area, and they'll want to see it doing well. It's going to probably benefit them, immediately in the immediate area, mostly. So local people and the community can actually also mean maybe just a interest community. So if it's a cycling project, for example, they're going out to the cycling community as opposed to just their own physical geographical community. And Facebook is really important. All social media is really important. We tend to highlight Facebook because across all of our projects, we say Facebook as being the most effective in getting pledges actually into the project. So Facebook is quite important in terms of creating that awareness and getting lots of posts out and engaging directly with the audience. So sitting down and thinking who they've already got on Facebook, is there any way they can increase the following? If not, if it's not a natural marketing tool for them, yes, they can stick with whatever it is. So if it's a very visual organisation, they use Instagram, for example, then, they focus on that, but use Facebook as a backup. And then the partners, so any business partners or affiliated organisations that they might work with, make sure they're engaged. So, for example, a lot of the rural projects we've worked with might have a touristy element to it. So they'll maybe go to Visit Scotland or more, on a more local basis, the tourist organisations to help them to promote. Right, so let's have a quick look at why people pledge then. So the orange bubble there saying they want to support the project owner. So that's, you're talking about the friends and the family and the staff, and they know the project owner, they want to see them do well on a personal level, and they really believe in what they're doing as well. So they're going to want to support them. On the blue bubble, they think the project is worthwhile. So again, that's the wider community who just believe in the cause, they believe in the reason why the project is happening, and they will support it, be it donation or reward. And then the green bubble is that they want the reward. So that usually the success comes there where the project owner has really sat down, looked at the network map, looked at the audience and thought, right, what rewards can we offer that's going to appeal to these different audience types? And that's the success comes from that, because people are then drawn to that reward and they will pledge to be able to get it because it's a one-off opportunity.
So we're going to now have a wee look at creating the project. So this would be the second step in the process, and what the user, the crowdfunder project owner gets faced with and what they should be thinking about. So when they first log into the crowdfunder page and they start to create their project, this is the kind of thing that they are going to be seeing. So you can see there's tabs along the bottom, and generally they work along these tabs. So starting off with About You, they then want to look at Project Basics, the project page where they would get to create their page, put their text in, things like that. Any pictures, any videos, all those kind of things are in there. The targets they're looking to set. If they're planning on rewards, one of the good things about adding rewards is that people do generally raise more money when they have rewards than when they don't. However, the good thing is they can put limits to numbers on rewards. So, for example, if they only had 4 of something or 5 of something available, they can limit the number of that reward. And I always think that's worth project owners knowing, because sometimes they go, I can only offer 2 of them, or it's going to be ridiculous for me, it's not going to work. But they are able to limit them. Financials, that is their financial details, and the schedule when they're planning to go live. Looking at the page that we're on just now, we have highlighted this page in general because there's a really important thing that we think is beneficial for you to know and be able to advise on. First part is the project title. That is the first thing anybody is going to see the project. So actually having a really clear project title, so that people know what the project is about, is a massive thing. So ensuring that project title says who they are and what they're doing. The second part that we like to highlight on this page is creating the unique web address, because it's something not a lot of project owners realise that they are able to do. So you can see at the bottom there is a part that says project slug, and that slug is a long combination of letters and numbers. Now, if somebody was trying to promote their project, they bumped into somebody in the local supermarket and they were trying to promote their project, and they say, oh, but I'm having a crowdfunder for it, let me give you the address, and then they would have to give that out there. That is a really complicated number combination to remember, and it would never happen. So what the project owner can do is they can change that part that says project slug to something much, much shorter, much, much sharper, and much, much easier. So for example, if Kirsty was starting a bakery, she could have crowdfunder.co.uk / change the slug just to say Kirsty's Bakery. And that way it is straightforward for her to pass that address out to anybody she thinks might support her crowdfunder. Extra funding, we have mentioned it, we have spoken about it. Now we're going to talk about it in a little bit more depth. This is what the project owner is faced with when we are looking at the extra funds that are available. So first of all, they land on this page, and there is a tick box that they need to tick to say, allow us to share your project details. Only by ticking that box can we then match them with any eligible funds. underneath that, there's a whole series of tick boxes, just trying to get a feel for the project and what kind of areas the project is working in. Well, then our computer system will match their project up with any eligible funds, and that they'll come up in a box on the right hand side, as you can see here. This example was matched up with Fife, Crowdfund Fife Fund. So then they could click on apply for funding, which takes them to another form, but we try and keep it as straightforward as we possibly can. But our funds are updating all the time. So you can go on at any point to crowdfunder.co.uk/funds to see what current funds are available. So we do have funding, over 50 funding partners. And as I said, these are changing all the time, updating all the time. It's really difficult to keep up with them, but we always make sure they are available on the website for anybody looking. And that way, if you're supporting a project, you can actually go and have a look and see if there's any match funding that would possibly be available. You can see from this that we do work with a wide range of different funding partners. So for example, we are currently running a Reviva project, which means that staff members actually get given vouchers that they can pledge on crowdfunders. So that's a really, or that they think eligible crowdfunders. So they can do that. So it's a really exciting time, and it helps get the staff involved. We also work with local authorities. So in the past, we've worked with Stirling, Angus and Fife. We do have extra funds, as I said, coming on board. There's one in Scotland that could be quite exciting. So we're just keeping our eyes open for it, that happening soon, hopefully.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what makes a good project, how to put, how to create the page. So now we're going to have a look at an example. So I'm going to share my screen, and this was one that was based in Haddington, and obviously, but also looking at the surrounding areas as well. So it was a lovely project that's called a company, a social enterprise called We Read Upcycles. And this was a lady who started the company to want to help provide opportunities and skills and build confidence of vulnerable young people through creative furniture upcycling workshops. So you can see I've just read out the aim there on the right hand side, and that is quite an important thing on a project, is to have, that's always going to be shown at the top of the page to the right of the video or the image that they have, and that needs to be engaging enough for people to want to learn more about the project. So that's quite an important part of the project to get right, is that short aim in there. Sorry, I've just missed out the title there. So we've got a strong title called Believe and Create, Empower Vulnerable Young People. However, I'm just going to highlight the fact that I don't know if you can actually see this, but the web address for the project itself was actually just /We Read Upcycle. So that's just reiterating the point about the project title and the web address. So they have a video. I'm not going to play this because we'll be showing you another one in a moment or two. But yeah, your video will be really key at the top of the page. You can see they raised £4,000. This was just in April this year. And the 135 supporters. That's really successful. You can also see here a message saying new stretch target. So we talked about, actually we haven't talked about targets yet. So we're going to come on to that. People can set a target, but then also a stretch target for overfunding. And once they get into that stretch target, a little message pops up like this on the page to let people know what they're going to do with the overfunding, the money that's raised in there. So nice visuals. They've got the company logo on there to let people know what to look out for in the future. She's introduced herself, given her backstory, what's made her set up this, how she's got to this point in time, and her experience as well. Then some lovely bright photos. People like photos of faces with faces in them, so it's much more personal and relatable. She's explained what a social enterprise is for people who don't know, and then also about the company, what they do, and some beautiful photos of the work that they do as well. So it's really tangible for supporters to see and visualise what their money is going towards. She's used lots of bold to make the text stand out. She's got good headings, and that's important to break the text up. Break it up not just with images, but also with headings, so that people are scrolling through the page. They maybe don't have time to read all of it, but they can hone in on the bits that they really want to know, which is going to help them decide whether they pledge or not. But she's gone through and she's provided information on what the issue is that she's trying to deal with, and how then they can be part of the solution. And then lots of good photos at the bottom, again, just to keep it bright, make it look nice. And then why are they crowdfunding? And then a big bold message, I need your help. And that's quite important. A lot of project owners miss out that call to action at the end. We're afraid sometimes to ask for help in this country. We're not good at it, but you've got to when you're crowdfunding. It's really important to direct the supporters and tell them what you want them to do for you. You know, actually tell them to go and donate and pledge and share your project. And then people are clear on how exactly they can help the project. So again, we've had rewards on this project as well. They're greyed out now, obviously, because it's closed, but lots of, and you can see that 1 of 1 claimed and 2 of 2, and that's referring back to that point Mary made, that people can limit the amount of rewards that are available if they are in fact limited. So some good price points there. She's known her audience well, £25, £10, £8, so fairly low priced, but in the main, but that is where a lot of the support comes from, because it's a nice price point. And then she's gone for obviously big workshops at £300, where you've got a group of people maybe want to all put in for one reward. So it's a great selection of rewards. One other thing I'm just going to quickly highlight to you, scroll back up to the top, is the updates section. So we always encourage project owners to send updates out via their page, and this goes directly to any supporters who have signed up to receive email updates from the project owner. And it's a great way to keep in touch with supporters and keep them in the loop on your progression of the project. So we've got, you know, a big thank you for a great start, and then asking them again to donate and pass it on. So it's encouraging people to stay engaged and keep passing, even though they've already donated themselves, keep sharing it with their own friends and family as well. Okay. So back to the slides. There's always the little technical bit there, isn't it? There we go.
So I would like to talk a wee bit about whether projects need a video and the benefits of video. We generally see that a video is such a booster project. People are more likely to support a project if it does have a video. And that could be because they feel connected to the project a little bit more. Faces are powerful, so people relate that little bit better to somebody talking in front of them. What we generally say when we are talking to projects is to keep it short and sweet. A video does not need to be any more than 2 minutes long, because people do have a short attention span. If it's shorter, it's actually slightly better. And we generally say, if you can actually get the biggest part of the information in the first 10 seconds, that's quite good, because people, again, don't always watch to the end. Getting somebody to be in front of the camera is probably one of the biggest tools a project owner can use, because faces are powerful. We relate better to faces, and actually people who are coming onto a project are more likely to trust the project if they can see a face that is part of the project. Also, if the project is talking somewhere that is related to the project, or doing something in relation to the project, that is something else that people relate quite well to. They then feel part of it. They then feel they trust it and are more likely to pledge on the project. The other thing to make sure they are doing is to write a script. Now, I'm not saying a word for script, absolutely not, but a script with the bullet points that they really do want to get across as strongly as possible. That will help them stay on track and ensure that they've said everything they need to say. I know, for example, I waffle quite often, and that is one of the things. If I did not have any bullet points, I'd be off on a tangent and I would never come back and never actually get my point across. So we're going to watch a video now, and I want you to actually pay attention to some of the things they have done. They have faces in front of the camera. They have a really good example of having being in a place, a really suitable environment for the video. They were cafe recharged. They were raising money to open a pay what you can cafe. So we will watch that video now.
Every year, over 10 million tonnes of perfectly edible food is thrown away, yet on the flip side, food bank usage in the Scottish borders alone is up over 300%. This is where we come in.
We're already collecting surplus food from supermarkets and using it to cater events around the borders, but we really need to move into our own premises now. We're opening a cafe in the centre of Galashiels.
We want our cafe to operate on a pay-what-you-can basis. This ensures that everybody can come and eat in our cafe, regardless of income. We also want to be able to offer cookery classes to the local community, whether that's children and parent classes, people affected by homelessness, students, young parents, people working on a budget. Getting people to cook together with low-cost ingredients will really help improve people's healthy eating habits.
Opening a cafe isn't cheap. We need to be able to install a kitchen, get cookery equipment, tables, chairs, cutlery, crockery.
And a really good coffee machine.
And that's where you come in.
This cafe will be hugely beneficial to all community in Galashiels and surrounding area, but we really need your help to get it going. We know it's close to Christmas and money's tight with everybody, but if you could help support it, we promise to give you an epically good cafe in Galashiels that you deserve.
So yeah, I think it's just a really, really good example of that a video doesn't need to be over the top. It doesn't need to be exaggerated. It doesn't need to be overproduced. It can just be simple and to the point, and using actually the surroundings and the people that they already have.
Okay, so let's have a look at targets. I mentioned targets when we were looking at that lovely project page a moment ago. And setting the right target is really important. It is, as it says there, a balancing act between what is realistic and what's needed to make the project happen. And it is something that we tend to spend a lot of time on talking with project owners, because they'll immediately think, you know, oh, well, we could do with £20,000 and that's going to cover everything. But you need to break it down really into what is the minimum that the project requires to get off the ground. And could they then, you know, overfund and use a stretch target and keep it more realistic, because it also needs to tie in with the numbers of the network map. So that's what we do. So then you've got the do list on the left-hand side there. Start with the minimum needed and plan to overfund. So that is, so for example, they need maybe £8,000 to get everything with off the ground, plus all the bells and whistles. We would tend to suggest you might set a target at, say, 5,000 and a stretch target of 8,000. So they know that they'll get that. If they aim for the £5,000, that at least allows them to get things going. And then if they get up to the 8,000, then that's even better. But what that provides a little bit more motivation and incentive for the supporters, because it looks more realistic that they're going to actually achieve that, and therefore it's worth putting money into. If it's too large a target, it can actually discourage supporters because they think they're never going to reach that target anyway. There's no point in me putting money towards it. The second point there, check the numbers add up with your network map. Again, I mentioned the network map is a working document. They need to look down and think realistically, how many people can they reach, and what proportion of that audience is realistically going to pledge. We tend to look at the statistic across, as an average statistic across all projects, that 1 in 20 people who who view a project page will then go on to pledge. You also have people that might look at a project page on day one and think, oh, that looks really good, I'll come back to that later. But you have to remember as a project owner to go and remind those people that have said that to actually go on and pledge. So again, those people can miss out if they forget to go back and don't receive any notification of that. Lock down key pledges ahead of the live date is another really important one. It's about getting out of the comfort zone and phoning people, emailing people, and contacting them and asking them if to commit to a pledge. And again, it can feel a bit uncomfortable asking for money, but that's what it's all about in crowdfunding. So if they don't know what you're doing, they can't help. So it's a really important part of the process is to speak to people early doors and get people committed, and for them to know, the project owner to know where that first 10 to 20% of their target is going to come from, so they know they can rely on it. And you know, if those people closest to them and even people in the project themselves haven't pledged early doors, then what reason does the wider audience have to support the project as well? So don't choose a huge target without the plan to back it up. So that's going back to the numbers and also making sure that they have an effective marketing plan in place that they can reach that target and it is achievable. And finally, don't send a project out to the entire audience on zero. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is hitting the go live button, thinking they've got a wonderful page, and often they do have a wonderful page, but they haven't started the promotion of it yet properly, and they go straight in with maybe a press release early doors, and it's going out to a really wide audience before those closest to them have actually gone ahead and made their pledge. And then loads of people look at it and think, well, there's nothing in the pot. I don't want to be the first to the party. I'll just wait until, and I'll watch it to see if it becomes successful or not. Okay, so we're moving on to the last step of running the project now, and this is about getting launch ready. So again, another reminder to them that they need to take the time to start those conversations in the run up to the launch, so people are prepared for them going live and they're ready to pledge. So that again is coming back to that commitment to a go live date, so they can actually tell people it's going to be available from this date, so that's when you'll be able to pledge. They need to review that network map, because through conversations they might discover new parts of their crowd, and people might say, oh gosh, you know, I know these people over here are going to be interested, I'll get you a contact. So they get added to the network map, and that progresses. Have those first 10 pledges lined up, the first 10 or 10%, whichever way you want to read that, and have them lined up, have those people ready with their cards on the day that it launches, so they can pledge early doors. Throw a launch event. So this is something we always suggest, is make a thing of it. Even if now it has to be mostly online because face-to-face is a bit limited. But, you know, we've seen people doing Facebook Live, just a big announcement on whatever social media, across all the social media channels that they use, and any websites that they have as well. Just, you know, make sure people are aware that it's open and live. And using all mediums, promote through all mediums. So it's not just social media. You have to remember the chatting to family and friends over the phone, or you know, Zoom catch-ups, but also using potentially things like flyers and posters and physical things in the community. And engaging with the project dashboard. We're going to come on to that in a minute, but just to reiterate the importance of the project owner remaining engaged with it and checking on it on a daily basis.
When a project owner is looking at using their network during the campaign, we generally say don't go for a throw it all in at once approach. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. And the first one would be because, as Kirsty just said, we want people to be coming on to a project page that looks like it's being successful, that looks like people are engaged with it. And the best way to do that is to start with the people closest to the project and closest to the project owner, because they're coming on, they are more likely to pledge first or be an early pledger, because they know the project owner, and they already have trust with the project owner that what they're doing could possibly happen, and that they trust that they will make it happen. So the initial people that we would generally advise to go out to would be the team and any friends and family right at the start. Those are the people that already know the person, know what they're doing, know who they are, and trust that they will make this successful. We would then go on to existing supporters, people that maybe supported the project in the past. They know the history of the project, so reaching out to them. I only ask you that when there's already some funds on the crowdfunder. Should a project owner really be looking at engaging with partners and then going on to social media. You can see from our timeline that social media isn't actually used until halfway through the project in this case. However, if the project owner had felt that they'd gone to their team, they're going to friends, families, existing supporters and partners quite early on, and they'd all given all they could at that point in time, they already had a good amount of support on their page, then they can move the whole timeline up towards the left-hand side there earlier on. Then I'll be looking at local people after that, local businesses. We talk about press and blogs being the last thing to go out for. Generally, the press or bloggers will not pick up a project unless it really does look like it's going to be successful, or it looks like there is a lot of backing already for it within the community. And the best way for them to see the backing is to see the supporters already building up on the page. So that's why that's usually one of the last ones that we would tend to suggest going out to when they're creating their marketing plan.
Okay, so finally we get to see this dashboard, which we've been mentioning all the way through. So it's just a screenshot of part of it, actually. This is the top part, which looks, you can see the blue lines are the number of pledges, and we record those on a daily basis. So that's where we're saying people need to, project owners should engage on a daily basis with their project and log into it and have a look, because that will tell them that there's other graphs they'll see further down the screen, which will relate to this. And so that this one says the number of pledges. They also get to see number of people viewing their page on a daily basis, and then also the source of all their pledges as well. So they can use all of that information to work with their marketing plan, look at which areas of marketing. So if there's done a particular post on a day which generates a load of pledges, then they know that's a favoured type and content of post that's engaged with people. So they might want to repeat that type of post again, and maybe drop some others that haven't generated much success. So it's just a really good tool that we encourage project owners to use frequently.
So we have now covered all the content we're hoping to cover. So I want to thank you for coming. We'll just go over quickly what we've looked at. So we have looked at what you could do to support projects. So that is signposting them, empowering them, and really supporting them. Planning the project is key. Build a team of skills. So that is making sure that the planning phase is done and not just thrown together and hope for the best. Creating a network map and planning marketing plan are essential, and that is something that we cannot highlight enough, which is why we've put it on the summary. It is so important to ensure that the project gets the best marketing and start they can. Setting a realistic target, then potentially overfunding. Getting creative with the project page. Encouraging the project owner to play about with it and see what looks good, what works and what doesn't. And use the resources available on crowdfunder.co.uk. That's what they're there for. That is why we design them, and that's why we put them out there. So it is definitely worth making sure that they are using the resources and you know what resources to point them towards.
Okay, and here's just a selection of some of the resources that are available. So for yourselves, you can familiarise yourself with some of the projects that we've supported in Scotland via the page there. So it's crowdfunder.co.uk/crowdfund-Scotland. We also have the online learning, which we mentioned earlier, so we'll pop the link to that in the chat box. And then you can check for some live events that we're doing. As we mentioned, we've been doing lots of webinars, and we still have some coming up. So we've got a 4-part webinar series coming up starting next week, actually. So there's 2 next week and 2 the following week. And that's just breaking down the process even further of crowdfunding. And it's a really good one for any project owners that are looking to learn more detail and guidance, and even for yourself, if you fancy learning more detail, then feel free to sign up. So those are on Eventbrite and free to sign up for. And then just direct people towards crowdfunder.co.uk for to start crowdfunding. Okay, and you can contact the team at scotland@crowdfunder.co.uk, and if it's Tyne-esque specific, you can email me at kirsty@crowdfunder.co.uk. Okay, so there's no questions popping up in the chat box. I'm going to assume we have probably given you loads of information there that you need to go away and maybe digest some of it. So yeah, as we say, feel free if any questions come up in your head, over the coming days, then you can just get in touch and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.